Good evening. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Wendell Town Board of Commissioners. Welcome. We're happy to have all of you here tonight, all of those who are watching as well tonight. We're going to be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Police Chief Bill Carter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. For our invocation tonight from the Wendell Council of Churches, we're going to hear from Wendell First Baptist Church. Errol Briggerman is representing them tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. Glad to see you all. Could I make a little announcement here? A couple of weeks ago I brought it up, but we've got it nailed down now.
Okay.
This coming Saturday, it's called Baptist Day of Service. There's 5 Baptist churches in the Raleigh or the Wake County area that's going to be doing this, and it's countywide, and there'll be at our church. We were chosen to be one of the drop-off stations, but we're starting to collect for hygiene items for the state fair. But let me kind of read through this. We're going to drop off for new and used clothing, non-perishable foods, hygiene. That'll be something we're putting together for what they're going to do up at the state fair. Mm-hmm. Cleaning supplies, and if you go to our website, which will be wendellbaptistnc.com, you can kind of get the whole gist of what we're doing. But it's first time we've done this, and it's the Habitat for Humanity. The gentleman that used to be over that has put this together, and we're also building a house somewhere in the area this Saturday. So anyhow, it's just an opportunity to kind of reach out to the community and ask the community to give back, which this community here has always done very well with that.
Thank you for being willing to do that right here in Wendell.
We were chosen to do it because of our community.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pray. Lord, thank you for this wonderful day you've given us. Thank you, Lord, for how you've blessed us with just opportunity to serve you. We just pray now, Lord, for this service, or for this time this evening, for this meeting, for our commissioners, for the decisions they have to make, and that it will be pleasing to you as well as everyone concerned here. We just ask you, Lord, to watch over this time here and watch over our community. Keep your arms around us and keep us pointed towards you. For all these things we ask in your blessed name. Amen.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's move into our public comment period. The public can participate in public comment in the following ways. You can sign up for public comment the night of the meeting at the podium at the door, and you have 3 minutes to speak. You can submit written statements via email to the town clerk, and they'll be read into the record at the length of 3 minutes, or you can request to call the Uber conference line the night of the meeting, and also you have 3 minutes to speak. We have some folks signed up tonight. The first is Megan Ray. You could give us your name and address when you get to the podium, please, ma'am.
My name is Megan Ray, and I'm at 7324 Lake Mire Road, Wendell, North Carolina. I'm speaking to the last meeting we had on Eagle Rock Road. I was a little fast because I was not prepared as much, but as attending that meeting, it seems that we're all wanting the same thing. First, our emotions can be a little high. We work hard for what we have, and some of it was passed down from generation to generation. The land I have is 6 acres. I love it. I love where I live. I love the peace and quiet. My concern coming up with this neighborhood is, of course, traffic being funneled down our road. There's some concerns with the stoplight, and I'll get into that in a minute, but it was brought to my attention about Mr. Williford. He's my neighbor. He's not in the best of health, but he still gets out and does, and he loves his land. I'm not sure how many of y'all are familiar with Mr. Williford, but he had a house in Wendell that he got permits, paid $1,000 to move to Lake Mire because he wanted to get out of the town. So as you can imagine, that's why he's upset about this land being taken behind him and turned into a neighborhood, because he came out there to get away from the city limits and live in quiet. That's why he won't allow right-of-ways that he doesn't want it. He sent in a certified letter, he said. I don't know if y'all have been made aware of that on his response to this land going in. I'm more than welcome to public records request that if I have to, but I just think y'all should be made aware of that and should look at that letter that he sent in and why his concerns are. The other thing I wanted to address was last time they said that the stoplight at Eagle Rock and Wendell Falls is not going to be addressed anytime soon because that's not a concern, but it is because we're putting up more and more houses in this area, so eventually it is going to be the town's concern, and it funnels things down our road to miss that light. I have to sit at that light for about 3 cycles just to get across the road over Wendell Falls down Eagle Rock to get to East Wake High School. So it is a concern that I have. And of course I brought up the curve. There's a bad curve right there at the intersection of Lake Glad. It might not seem bad to people, but people come flying around that curve. There have been accidents there, deadly ones. So that is another concern I have with this neighborhood going in, and especially with that, whatever they want to call it, the emergency exit right there. My concern is who's checking those measurements behind, because if that, the way they showed it, and I could be misunderstanding, but the way they showed it, it did not look like it was 300 feet off that intersection. It looked like it was almost right there at it, on the other side of the grooming barn, because I take my dog to the grooming barn, and that driveway is hard to get out. I had to really gun it to get out of there. So that is another concern of mine. So I just wanted to say, these are the concerns I have. Like I said, we all want the same thing. I want growth, but I want it done the right way. I think they should take a step back and look at fixing the issues that are more concerning the road.
Thank you. Amanda Allen?
Hello, I'm Amanda Allen. I live at 6933 Lake Myra Road. I'm here tonight to also speak on the proposal to annex 41.59 acres on Eagle Rock Road. A 116-home subdivision with one designated entry and exit point surrounded by private homes and in close proximity to Lake Glad Road is a major safety concern. At the last public meeting, Mr. Vaughn, Mr. Parks, and Ms. Ray all described the blind curve in this Eagle Rock Road area, and they told how they've been firsthand witnesses to several deadly accidents. Adding an additional 116 households to this already dangerous area will likely result in more loss of life. The development plans estimate that there will be more than 100 peak hour trips per day. Although Eagle Rock Road has been identified as a future 4-lane road, there's no timeline for this change. Also, as pointed out at the last meeting, there's no timeline of when the intersection of Eagle Rock Road and Wendell Falls Parkway will have a turning lane added. Current traffic patterns already demonstrate that the Lake Myra Road area is being used as a cut-through to Smithville Road and Wendell Falls Parkway, and this development will only exacerbate this problem. It seems the developer and the town are also banking on the assumption that the surrounding R30 lands will be similarly developed in the not-so-distant future to connect this property and add additional entryways. It should be noted that there's no guarantee that other landowners will sell to developers. It's quite telling that at the last meeting that Mr. Puryear with the development said that despite 3 or 4 meetings with an adjoining landowner, a second access and easement requests were both denied. This annexation proposal does not make sense for the area that the land is located. All we ask is that you recognize the Lake Myra community of Wendell as different with its lower density, its open space, the Turnip Seed Nature Preserve, other county-owned lands, including the future Lake Myra County Park. Land in the Lake Myra community, particularly those that share a boundary with the Turnip Seed Nature Preserve, should be held to a higher standard when it comes to annexation, and that's why I request that you vote no tonight. Thank you.
Alan Holyfield.
Hi there. My name's Alan Hollifield. I live at 7300 Jonathan Drive. That's right off Lake Myra. Just in the last few weeks, the problem with the red light at Wendell Falls Parkway and Eagle Rock Road has gotten so bad, people are now finding that they can shoot down Lake Myra and hit Pool Road and come up through the backside of Wendell Falls to get to the highway. We live in a blind curve. Twice last week, there's cars come down through there 65 mile an hour plus, trying to get away from traffic and beat the guy next to him and almost hit me coming out of my own neighborhood. Then whenever you get to Wendell Falls, I go that way toward Nightdale to go to work. Whenever you do manage to get to Wendell Falls, when you stop at the light right there at the Publix, you look behind you. 2 years ago, there was hardly any traffic. Now, it's as far back as you can see, 2 lanes. From there to the interstate, they fight neck and neck. All the lanes are wide open. They go down to the last minute going for the highway, taking that left. They stay in the left and the right lane. In the last minute, they try to feed in. They block everything off. I go straight to go into Nightdale right there. People think I'm trying to go past them and get in front of them. They sit in the middle of the lane, blocking the road from me going down the road because they think I'm trying to get around them like everybody else. Okay? I think this neighborhood that's going in is definitely going to cause problems on Eagle Rock and Lake Myra for everybody in that area. There's already 7 new housing developments right here in Wendell. Old Battle Bridge Road, Eagle Rock Road, right there, the neighborhood that they just started the second phase of behind Wendell Falls. They just built the apartments and condos as you're coming into town, right there in Wendell Falls. Lake Glad, and now they want to do this on Eagle Rock behind us. How are they going to advertise the house? Come live in Wendell, but we don't have room for your kid in the schools. Come live in Wendell, but we got a year waiting list on daycare. Come live in Wendell, but our traffic that's here now can't stain the roads that are here. And there's no plan for any future repair or widening. And when that does happen, what's it going to be? Is it going to be 7 years like Flowers Plantation? That's a 4-lane road, and that's what y'all want to do to Eagle Rock. That's going to bring more congestion. Everybody coming in from Johnson County, it's just going to be a horrible mess. When does it stop? Y'all are coming out toward the county, and now you're coming out to people that moved away from the city to get away from the crime, people, and everything else. Most of these people out there have lived their lives there 30 or 40 years. These neighborhoods are bringing a higher tax bracket for them. How are they going to be able to afford to pay for the things if they're on fixed income?
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank
Yep.
you. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's move into our recognitions, reports, and presentations. The first, item 4A, is a proclamation recognizing October 8th, 2022 as Wendell High School Day. This item, the Wendell Historical Society is sponsoring the first ever Wendell High School all-class reunion on October 8th, 2022 to celebrate the history and influence of the school. I'm going to present a proclamation there that day, and we're going to hear it here tonight so that y'all will know what's going on. This is open to the Historical Society wants to extend an invitation to anyone who's graduated from high school in this area to attend, and even if you haven't, if you're interested, there's going to be a lot of information there about the area, and they'd love for you to come. There are going to be booths and a lot of information there. And if you are interested, you can contact the Wendell Historical Society or Mary Jo Cashin, and they will give you some more details about it. So let's listen to the proclamation. Whereas the history of education in the area that became Wendell began in the mid-1800s when a log structure was built on the present site of Wendell Elementary School and was called Rhodes School in recognition of the man who donated the land, Ambrose Rhodes. And whereas Mally Asa Griffin, considered the father of education in Wendell, came to teach at the Rhodes School in 1888 and left a year later to continue his education and returned to the Rhodes School 2 years later. Whereas in 1891, the name Rhodes School was changed to Wendell Preparatory School, Male and Female Academy, in acknowledgement of new Wendell Post Office in the community, and shortened a year later to Wendell Academy. Whereas an avid supporter of the school, even after he left teaching to pursue business interests, Griffin led an effort as the town passed its first bond issue for construction of a public school, leading the way in 1911 to the erection of a new building called Wendell Graded School, said to have been the largest and finest graded school in the state outside of Raleigh. Thus, Wendell High School was born. Whereas in 1915, Eva and Marie Perkins, Leslie Richardson, and Edgar Maddox became the first graduates of the Wendell High School, with a succession of graduates following over the next 50 years. And whereas the school was served by dedicated leaders, many of whom spent their entire career at the school teaching several generations of students. And whereas Wendell High School played a central role in the community with its facilities used for civic and social activities. Whereas although small, the school educated students who could compete with those from much larger schools and produce doctors, lawyers, teachers, and other successful people in many walks of life who continued to value their time at Wendell High School. Whereas Wendell High School closed its doors in 1965 with the opening of Baden-Whitley High School, which consolidated the Wendell School with those in Knightdale and Rollsville. And whereas the Wendell Historical Society is sponsoring the first ever Wendell High School all-class reunion on October 8, 2022 to celebrate the history and influence of the school. Now therefore, on behalf of the Wendell Board of Commissioners, I, Virginia Gray, Mayor of the Town of Wendell, do hereby proclaim Saturday, October 8, 2022 as Wendell High School Day in the Town of Wendell and commend its observance to all citizens. Duly proclaimed this the 12th day of September 2022. So again, if you're interested in going, they're going to have a lot of history and a lot of information. I would encourage you to go and check that out. If you want some more information, I might can get that for you as well. All right, item 4B, another proclamation declaring September 2022 as Wendell Preparedness Month. The Wake County Fire Services Emergency Management has reached out to the Town of Wendell's Police Department requesting that Wendell pursue a Preparedness Month proclamation for September, and of course we were willing to participate in that. Preparedness Month is a nationwide initiative aimed at raising awareness of the importance of all hazard preparedness for individuals, businesses, and communities. Is Mr. Josh Creighton here tonight? Okay. Read this proclamation. Thank you. Okay. Recognizing Wendell Preparedness Month, September 2022. Whereas Wendell is at risk for a multitude of hazards including severe weather, terrorism, biological events, hazardous material incidents, nuclear emergencies, civil unrest, and other man-made or natural disasters. And whereas thus far in 2022, Wake County has experienced 18 flash flood warnings, 54 flood advisories, 88 severe thunderstorm warnings, 6 tornado warnings, and 25 extreme heat warnings. And whereas political division has increased the risk of domestic terrorism and civil unrest, whereas communities across Wake County have experienced civil unrest, nuclear emergency declarations, significant hazmat incidents, and severe weather, and whereas every community, business, family, and individual in Wake County is encouraged to be ready for natural and man-made disasters, including terrorism, tornadoes, flooding, hurricanes, and other emergency situations that might disrupt normal daily activities. Whereas all Wake County residents can take steps such as making a family disaster plan, creating an emergency supply kit, and staying informed to help make preparedness and personal responsibility a priority. Whereas Wendell residents should know and understand the risks for their area and plan accordingly. And whereas Wendell recommends residents include the safety of their pets and or livestock in their emergency plan. Whereas FEMA and the Office of the President of the United States recognize September as National Preparedness Month to encourage North Carolinians and Wendell residents to be disaster ready. Now therefore, on behalf of the Wendell Board of Commissioners, I, Virginia Gray, Mayor of the Town of Wendell, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2022 as Preparedness Month in Wendell, and encourage all residents to plan and prepare for weather-related and man-made disasters by assembling their emergency supply kits and updating their emergency plans. Duly proclaimed this the 12th day of September, 2022, and it's signed by me. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you,
Want
Mayor.
to say anything?
Yes, thank you for doing this proclamation.
welcome.
The county did this last week. Some other municipalities did it last week. Others are doing it this week. And I would like to introduce Autumn Goheen from our staff. She joined our staff a few months ago and as an outreach coordinator and has done a great job. And the smartest thing for me to do is be quiet and let her do her job.
Okay.
I doubt that. On behalf of Wake County Emergency Management, we want to thank all of you for seeing the value in this proclamation. As we all within Wake County experience exponential growth, it is becoming more and more important to foster preparedness on the individual level so that we can build resilient communities that are better able to recover from disasters. We are no strangers to flooding from hurricanes, from tornadoes, from severe weather, and the more that we can do on the local level to really encourage our families to know where to go to get resources and how to be prepared, then the better we'll all be together as a community. I also want to just let everyone know about the resources that Wake County does have available for everyone. We do have readywake.com. It's for anyone that's within Wake County. It has listed information of what you can have on hand in a preparedness kit in your home so that these incidences without power or water for a few days aren't as scary. They don't make you as nervous, and you don't have to rush out to the store to try to fight everybody for a little bit of water. We also have Ready Wake Alerts, which is a text, email, or phone call alert system that's available to all of our residents. So missing persons, boil water advisories, and we just launched weather alerts. So if there is a severe weather alert for your area, whether that be flash floods, high wind advisories, or tornadoes, then you can have that set up to come directly to your phone so that when those seconds do count, that you have that time to get your family to a safe area. So again, we want to thank you guys, and if we can be of any resource to anyone within Wendell, we are here to help. So feel free to reach out to me at any time.
Thank you so
But thank
much.
you.
Did y'all want this?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. You're very welcome. Thank you for coming
Thank you.
tonight. All right, item 4C is the recognition of the Certificate of Achievement from the Government Finance Officers Association for the fiscal year 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. From our Finance Director, Garrett Johnson.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the board. Let me get to this item. Thank you for the mouthful introducing that item, Mayor. As Mayor Gray stated, I'm here tonight to present the Certificate of Achievement from the Government Finance Officers Association for the Town of Wendell's fiscal year 2021 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. At this point, the board's heard my spiel several times. This is our 6th time receiving the award. First award received was for fiscal year 2016. But for those in the room or those at home who aren't familiar, who haven't heard this before, give a quick little rundown. The Annual Comprehensive Financial Report is a voluntarily constructed document that represents above and beyond financial and non-financial reporting. The report's made up of 4 sections: introductory, financial, statistical, and compliance, the last being optional. The report is submitted to the GFOA no more than 6 months after the fiscal year ends, which would be the end of December. The report is reviewed by a panel of government accounting professionals to determine if the report complies with reporting standards and whether or not it portrays a true story for the town's financial and, again, non-financial position. At the time of the submittal last year, the finance department staff included Butch Kay, who is our recently retired finance director, myself, Malia Edwards, who's our payroll benefit specialist, Elizabeth Jones, who's our accountant, and Ashley Costello, who was at the time our accounting technician. I did want to take the time to recognize those individuals because it is very much a team effort to get that put together and submitted accurately and in a timely manner. So something that we are very proud of, getting ready to start working for the fiscal '22 report that we'll submit here in the next three months, I guess it is now. So hopefully we can get it for a 7th time. Thank you.
Congratulations,
Thank you.
and thank you so much for all your hard work on behalf of the citizens of Wendell. We really appreciate it. 6 years in a row, that's pretty cool.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move into our public hearings. Item 5A is an evidentiary hearing on a special use permit requested by Jim McMillan of Edinburgh Development to allow multifamily residential use at 2891 Wendell Boulevard and 969 Marshburn Road, pins numbers 1784456-183 and 1784542-734. Mr. Coates?
Yep.
You know what, let's hear from the town attorney first about the rules for evidentiary, in an evidentiary hearing. Let's stay in
Thank you,
order.
Madam Mayor.
Uh-huh.
As you know, and the board know, these are quasi-judicial proceedings. They are now, by statute, called evidentiary hearings. They are due process-laden requirements, much like a court of law. The decision has to be based on evidence presented at this hearing. Witnesses are sworn to give testimony under oath. The statute says your decision must be based on competent, material, and substantial evidence in the record. And again, all of those are terms that relate to the admissibility and the quality of evidence in a court of law. And if these proceedings, what I've seen from case law in recent years, these proceedings have become more judicial and less quasi. And they are much like a court of law now. So put on your robes and conduct the hearing, and if it meets the requirements, it should be allowed.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Coates? Well, I'm sorry I called you again. Let's let the town clerk provide the oath for persons wishing to present testimony. If there's anyone who is going to want to speak at this, just come gather around. That includes citizens getting public comment. Did we get the citizen that wanted to speak? Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you. All right. Now, Mr. Coates.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Board. Because this hearing is evidentiary, just to go over, planning staff does not make a recommendation. We just present the facts, and so our slides, we will go over the facts of the case. As you mentioned, this is special use 22-03, evidentiary hearing for a special use permit requested by Jim McMillan of Edinburgh Development to allow a multifamily residential use at 2891 Wendell Boulevard and 969 Marshburn Road with those pins identified. The request is to hold the hearing this evening. Item summary, Jim McMillan of Edinburgh has requested a special use for 396 apartments to be constructed on those apartments. Wendell Village Apartments will include a pool, clubhouse, fitness center, grilling area, dog park, and outdoor play area. In the town's UDO, a dwelling multifamily means a dwelling unit that is part of a structure containing more than one unit. Each unit has a separate entrance from outside. Multifamily dwellings may include triplex, fourplex, buildings under one ownership with 2 to 4 units in the same structure, as well as townhomes. And the units are divided vertically. Each unit has separate entrances, possibly, and apartments. Town of Wendell UDO requires a special use permit be granted for multifamily dwellings if they're not part of a conditional district. If the special use permit is approved, the preliminary development plans and construction drawings would need to be approved by the Technical Review Committee. Project location, as we mentioned, the address, the parcels are currently behind Food Lion and a Hardee's, and they have access out to Marshburn Road. Current zoning is corridor mixed use, CMX. The area for the request is 27.41 acres. Corporate limits is in the town of Wendell. Current land use vacant, proposed land use multifamily. Current property owner is G3 Properties, and as we mentioned, the applicant is Jim McMillan. You can see here on this map, parcels are outlined in red. Properties to the north are residential and agricultural and zoned RA. Properties to the south are Hardee's, Robinwood Senior Living, the post office, and their zones CMX, RA, and Neighborhood Center. Properties to the east that will border their apartments belong to Wendell Landscape Supply, and the residential properties will be across the street from the open space in the entrance. Properties to the west include Food Lion Shopping Plaza, a vacant lot, and the Subway Shopping Center are all zoned CMX. Corridor mixed use is a zoning district that contains, the district can contain dwelling as a multifamily as an allowed use by special permit. These properties were entirely zoned CMX at the February 8th, 2021 town board meeting. Previously, part of the parcels were zoned CMX, and the rezoning case from 2021 had all of the properties zoned that way. Corridor mixed use is coded to provide pedestrian scaled higher density residential and neighborhood serving commercial activities along existing mixed use corridors. Developments in the district should encourage pedestrian use through connections to adjacent neighborhoods and the construction of mixed use buildings. Depending on the presence of on-street parking, buildings may be set close to the street and may be larger in form. Here's the reduced site plan, which is a requirement for the special use permit. On this site plan, you can see I'll start at the southern end. Where the cursor is currently is the Hardee's location. The two streets around that have been dedicated to the town and are public right-of-way. The east-west collector road, they would be constructed as part of this project, has access out to Marshburn Road, and stops right at the vacant parcel between Food Lion and the Subway project. The apartments, buildings, and all of the amenities are north of that road. The open space you can see is highlighted here in like a dashed line, includes a variety of things that are committed in a zoning condition. It does leave these two remaining parcels between Hardee's and the apartments for potential future use. The applicant has provided the reduced site plan, which is required for a special use permit. The proposed site plan for the apartment community includes 12 buildings with 3 stories each for living in a clubhouse leasing center and also an indoor fitness center. Site plan contains a new property line along the northern boundary between the Scott Painter and Amy Benson properties. If you recall, in a rezoning, there was a farm path that was partially on this property, and they've actually adjusted that property line and not included that area in their proposal, and then provided the 20-foot buffer. So the new property line does accommodate that existing farm path and driveway and outbuildings. The applicant has provided the following voluntary conditions. The development shall incorporate the following amenities into the project. Layout and location of the listed amenities are subject to change, but will be finalized through the site plan process and will meet the town of Wendell UDO requirements. Clubhouse of roughly 4,000 square feet, fitness center of 4,000, an outdoor fitness area, a grilling area, swimming pool of roughly 3,200 square feet, a dog park, an outdoor play area with play equipment designed and sized to sufficiently accommodate the residents of the project. And then H is open space. Condition 2, common space number 10 is to be reserved for use as a pocket park. Amenities for the park shall include public art, benches, picnic tables, and enhanced landscaping. Condition 3, the use of vinyl siding shall be prohibited. Condition 4 is design standards of the building. Materials, the vision for the project is to create a warm, bright, inviting community with a strong residential character. In keeping with this vision, materials for the project have been selected that align with the design approach, with a focus on lap siding, board and batten, vertical siding, and shingles. Brick can often tend to establish a more institutional character that does not align with the light, engaging quality they are striving to achieve. That being said, they have included brick in limited quantities at the clubhouse, fitness center, but have focused on more residential materials for the apartment buildings. And condition 5 is a 15-foot type B buffer will be included on the east side of the project against the properties currently owned by the Privets, where otherwise a buffer is not required. The applicant did provide building elevations for a proposed development in attachment C. Parking, the UDO requires 1 parking space per bedroom up to 2 per unit for 198 apartments with 1 bedroom and 198 apartments with 2 or 3 bedrooms. That's a requirement of 594 spaces. The applicant is currently providing 598, 16 of which are handicap spaces, and the applicant's also providing the required bicycle parking. Buffering, UDO requires a 20-foot type B buffer between the properties along the northern and northeastern boundaries. The applicant's not required to provide any additional buffers. However, they are providing a 15-foot type B buffer along the eastern boundary between the apartments and the existing landscape business along Marshburn Road. Open space dedication for apartments is 500 square feet per dwelling unit. For the 396 apartments, the dedication would be roughly 198,000 square feet or 4.54 acres. They're providing 4.68 and with the zoning condition have committed to the amenities. Stormwater management, if the special use permit is granted, the preliminary plans and construction drawings will require review by Wake County for conformity with the town's stormwater regulations. While the reduced site plan does show a stormwater device on the southeast corner of the project along Marshburn Road, the final stormwater plan could vary from what is being shown on review for the preliminary or construction drawings. Public utilities development of the site will require connection to city water and sewer, which is available nearby. Streets, the east-west street that you see from Marshburn to the border with the Food Lion vacant parcel there is a 52-foot right-of-way with curb and gutter, sidewalk, street trees that will become a town-maintained street and runs east-west throughout the site. The residents of the apartment community will have access to Rosalind Way, to Hanner Lane or Wendell Boulevard, or the east-west connector out to Marshburn Road. TIA, town does require a TIA that exceeds the 100 peak hour trips per day. They did prepare one. The TIA contains 2 entrance points for the apartment community, one off Rosalind Way and a new local street that connects the community to Marshburn. The TIA does not contain any roadway improvements. However, the town of Wendell will require an additional 9.5 feet of right-of-way dedication, 6 feet of pavement, which is half of a travel lane, 5-foot bike lane, street trees, curb and gutter, and a 6-foot sidewalk along Marshburn Road frontage. Comprehensive plan does list this area's Activity Center 2, which is a blending of complementary commercial, office, and a mix of residential types. This Activity Center 2s are appropriate to have grocery stores, retail, restaurant, personal services like banks, offices, small to medium-sized medical office uses, single-family, townhome, multifamily condo or apartments, and then have a grid-modified street network, and also open space for walking and biking paths, courtyards, and gathering spaces as well. The proposed project meets the characteristics outlined in the description of the AC Activity Center 2 place type as it relates to density, uses, connectivity, and open space. The blending of a complementary commercial, office, and mix of residential. The proposed project is for apartments located within walking distance of restaurants, grocery store, DMV, post office, barber shop, and etc. And then just a keynote, between the existing Hardee's restaurant and the apartments are 2 lots along Roseland Way, one of a little over 2 acres and one of 2.69 acres that could be used for additional commercial uses. The applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting on August 29th, 2022. Attachment D in your packet contains the meeting notes. Staff comments, as I said earlier, we don't make a recommendation on special use permits. We did legally advertise information in the Wake Weekly newspaper. Notification was mailed to adjacent property owners, and a public hearing notice was placed at the location as well. The applicant does have a PowerPoint as well.
Okay. All right, let's hear from the applicant.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm Mark Frederick with Parker, Poe, Adams, and Bernstein at 301 Fayetteville Street in Raleigh, North Carolina, 27601. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you, Mr. Coates, for the background on this case. I'd like to provide a little more context before we turn it over to our experts to provide the evidence you need to make your findings. This site is located between Wendell Boulevard and Marshburn Road, with access currently on Rosaline Way and proposed access on Marshburn Road. The site is approximately 27 acres in area and is currently undeveloped. It was recently rezoned back in February of last year to the Corridor Mixed-Use District to allow this type of development. It was also annexed into the town's corporate limits at the same time, and the multifamily use that we are proposing it is permitted in the district, but with a special use permit, which is why we were back before you tonight. We did hold a neighborhood meeting a few weeks ago. We heard several concerns at that meeting, and we have since proposed a condition. One of the major concern we heard at that meeting was related to the buffering to the north and the east to those adjacent properties. We're still working through the language of that condition with staff, but we are proposing to add a 6-foot privacy fence along those property lines. And I'll let our experts talk more on that in more detail. And as I mentioned, we do have several experts here to present testimony on this case. Jim McMillan, a principal with Edinburgh Development, will speak about the vision for the project. Chris Seamster with McKim & Creed will speak to the plan's compliance with town plans and the town's UDO. Josh Renke with Ramey Kemp Associates, the transportation engineer for the project, will speak to the traffic impacts. And finally, Hunter Howell with Valbridge Property Advisors will speak to the impacts to this property and the surrounding properties. So as you listen to their testimony, I just ask that you pay attention to these approval criteria and how we have satisfied each approval criteria with expert testimony that speaks to competent material and substantial evidence. So I'd like to introduce our first witness, Jim McMillan.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for the time. My name is Jim McMillan. I'm a principal with Edinburgh Development, the applicant for this property. I guess a little quick background about us. I've been in commercial real estate for about 20 years in development. We're a very small local development company. We're based in Cary. My wife and I both are lifelong Wake County residents, for whatever that's worth. But we've got a good bit of experience in our, despite being pretty small, here in the area. Also, too, we are currently developing. Mayor Gray may remember at our groundbreaking, we're developing Tree Light Square out at Wendell Falls, the shopping center part there, the retail center, 6 buildings. So we're very proud of that. 3 of the buildings are complete. The tenants are doing their outfits now, and 3 more of the buildings are currently underway. So we'll have all 6 hopefully done this time, Christmas time or so. It's also worth mentioning that we have purchased another parcel there as of about 6 weeks ago that we intend to do more commercial on, hopefully some office, perhaps medical office, and more retail. The vision for this project, let me back up a second. The history of this project actually came about, the owner of the property, current owner of the property, Amos Green, who's here, a resident of Wendell, is also our contractor. He's building our shopping center for us. So we're proud of not only being a part of Wendell with our shopping center, but hiring local, and Wendell, Amos has done a great job. But we came across the opportunity to purchase this from Amos, as I said, for having been our contractor for now a year and a half or so, and we got interested in it at that point. I think one of the hallmarks of what Edinburgh Development is known for is building above and beyond sort of the minimum standard, well above that. Tree Light, if you've been out there, is a good example. The architecture of that, the feel of that, all 6 buildings are well and above what we could have done. We like to be proud of what we build. And this project that we're proposing this evening is no different. We want to have something that's well above the common apartments, with the finishes, the standards, the citizens, the people, the residents that will live there. And that's what we're proposing tonight. In that, as Mr. Coates mentioned before, a warm, bright, inviting community with strong residential character. That's the hallmark of what we're looking to do. And so we thank you for listening tonight.
Our next witness is Chris Seamster.
Good evening. I'm Chris Seamster. Office address is 1730 Varsity Drive in Raleigh. I'm the regional manager of the Land Development Group with McKim & Creed. I've got a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture from Virginia Tech, licensed landscape architect in North Carolina, number 982, 27 years experience, 21 with McKim & Creed. I've worked in Wendell on various projects throughout my career, and extensively since 2014, as we've been the lead engineer for Wendell Falls. For this project, I've overseen the layout and design of the site plan and worked with town staff, Brian and Stacy, to ensure the compliance with the town standards.
I'd like to tender Mr. Seamster as an expert witness in site design.
Thanks, Mark. The site plan you see on the screen has gone through several rounds of review with the town planning staff. We've worked with staff to refine the plans and ensure they conform with to the applicable development standards. We also have incorporated several changes based on comments and concerns we heard from the neighbors at the community meeting a few weeks ago. I'll provide some high-level details, but happy to dive into more specifics if you have any questions. As Brian has stated, the project as a whole has 396 multifamily dwelling units spread across 12 buildings, all 3 stories, on the 27-acre site. The proposed multifamily use and density are allowed in the corridor's mixed-use zoning district, which is intended for pedestrian-scale, higher-density residential uses. The proposed use is also consistent with the comprehensive plan, which places the site in a neighborhood center, which calls for higher-density housing. The basic layout of the site includes the extension of Rosaline Way into the site, intersecting the new east-west local road before entering the apartment complex. 2 access points are proposed, with the main entrance coming off of Rosaline Way and the secondary access tying to Marshburn Road. The southern portion of the site along Rosaline Way is to be subdivided and reserved for future development. The new parcels will likely be better suited for commercial and retail uses and would help create a more mixed-use component to the community. The building and site dimensional standards applicable in the site's zoning district have all been incorporated in this layout. This includes building height, building setbacks from streets, and separation between buildings. The plans currently include 598 parking spaces. Stormwater is managed with a wet detention pond in the southeast corner and will comply with the town and county standards. There you go. Looking for the page down. Okay, so this slide goes over the open space and amenities for the project. This exhibit features open space, amenities, and landscaping for the project. The code requires 500 square feet of open space per apartment unit, which equals 4.54 acres based on the 396 units. The plans we have submitted include a total of 4.6 acres of open space. This open space is spread throughout the site. You can see shaded in green there on the slide. Most notably, we are reserving a larger area on the eastern portion of the site, north of the road, the east-west road, to be used as a pocket park with enhanced landscaping, benches, and public art. In addition to the open space throughout the site, the project includes a clubhouse, pool, grill area, and indoor-outdoor fitness center, centrally located at the main entrance to provide a distinctive area for residents to gather. We also have committed to including a dog park and playground, although those locations have not been finalized, but we will as we go through the review process with TRC and CDs. The project also includes perimeter buffers. As we discussed, the buffers were a topic of discussion at the neighborhood meeting, in particular along the north and east. The buffers were originally proposed, including the landscaping required by the town's code, but after the discussions with the neighbors, we've added a 6-foot privacy fence along the northern and eastern property lines to provide additional screening, security, physical separation between our project and the adjacent uses. We've also added plantings to help screen the rear of the grocery store and retail area on the west side of our project. The landscaping shown on this exhibit conforms to town standards and includes street trees, parking lot landscaping, enhanced landscaping in the pocket park. For design standards, the building design will comply with all UDO standards for the apartment building type. This rendering includes the main clubhouse and leasing center in the foreground, with several apartment buildings in the background. The vision for the project, as stated earlier, is to create a warm, bright, and inviting community with a strong residential character. To that end, we have a focus on lap siding, board and batten, vertical siding, and shingles. We wanted to avoid too much brick because of the institutional character that it creates, but we have included some brick in the design of the clubhouse and fitness center. And finally, we have prohibited the use of vinyl siding. And happy to answer any particular specific questions about the site plan, if you have any. No, good. Thank you.
Our next witness is Josh Ranke.
Good evening, Josh Ranke, State Traffic Engineering Lead at Ramey Kemp & Associates, 5808 Farringdon Place, Raleigh, North Carolina. Registered professional engineer in the state of North Carolina, pre-qualified by NCDOT to conduct traffic impact analyses, bachelor's in civil engineering from Valparaiso University, and 19 years experience.
I'd now tender Mr. Ranke as an expert in the field of transportation engineering.
Thank you.
So the traffic impact analysis for this project was conducted with input and review feedback from NCDOT as well as the town staff, following their guidelines for traffic impact analyses. We considered 396 apartment units in this TIA with the 6 study intersections, and there we go, that are shown in the slide there. The analysis considered not only the existing traffic volumes that we collected data on earlier this year, but the growth to the future year, as well as 4 adjacent developments and the site trips expected from this site. So it's kind of a comprehensive looking at all those things combined. when we look at the analysis. This site has approximately 1,850 trips, daily trips during the weekday, that are expected to be generated by that based on NCDOT guidelines following typical standards. That's about half of what the NCDOT would typically require for a threshold for a TIA, but we did submit it to them. We included them in the scoping and all those steps along the way, to get their review comments as well. The daily trips are, 1,850, 163 AM peak hour trips. So what that is we look at that peak time between 7 and 9 AM, find the worst case of that, and then consider the worst case for these trips during that time. 155 PM peak hour trips, the same thing. We're looking at a 2-hour period, find the worst case, and kind of look at that in our analysis. Based on the analysis, the improvements we considered were to mitigate the traffic expected for this. The TIA does recommend that the eastern Marshburn Road site driveway be constructed with one westbound ingress and one egress lane. What that is it's going to be, the egress will be shared. It will be striped as a right-left turn lane with stop control. There are no recommended lanes on no recommended turn lanes on Marshburn. We look at that as capacity, safety, considering NCDOT guidelines for where we should consider those turn lanes, and it was well below those thresholds. We did get the review comments, and they were in agreement with that. We also looked at the other recommendation we had was to install a do not block intersection signage at the Rosalane Way driveway connection along Hanner Lane. What we have is at the signalized intersection, any queuing there, we just kind of want to help make sure it's a safer condition. So both of these recommendations have been incorporated into the proposed site plan, so it is my professional opinion that the proposed development will not adversely impact the safety of residents from a transportation perspective, and the proposed use will not constitute a nuisance based on vehicular movement. The proposed road network will allow the safe and efficient flow of emergency services to and from the site. And I'm happy to answer any questions you all have.
I do have a question, if it's the right time. I think you said this, but just maybe to clarify and reiterate for me. The motion for northbound traffic on Marshburn Road turning into the site, on this, it looks like it's saying recommended laneage. Can you just explain?
Yeah, so what it is it's actually a striping thing, so it's saying it's a shared through left lane there. So typically what you'd see is a split off arrow. So while it is recommended laneage, they're saying restripe that so you know you can do either of those movements. Kind of what I'm trying to describe there where it's split off is if you look at one of the intersections, say US 64 Business, Wendell, and Hanner Lane, you have a right turn lane exclusively there for the westbound direction and a shared left through. So that would be where they're split apart and it's two different distinct lanes. So ours would be a shared one there. Correct. Thank you.
Our last witness is Hunter Howell.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hunter Howell. My office address is 412 East Chatham Street, Cary, North Carolina, 27511. I'm a professional real estate appraiser, and I work with Valbridge Property Advisors. I am currently licensed by North Carolina as a state certified general appraiser, and I am a member of the Appraisal Institute working towards an MAI designation. I have been appraising properties here in Wake County for approximately 8 years now, and I was engaged by the applicant to examine this development's impact on the site and the development surrounding.
I would tender Mr. Howell as an expert in the field of property appraisals and impacts of new development. Excuse me.
I'll review the site plan, the character of the surrounding area, and how this type of development typically impacts surrounding property. The site is currently vacant and is located east of the Food Line Shopping Center that fronts Wendell Boulevard. There are commercial parcels to the south and east that are largely commercial, including a retirement community. The area to the north is largely agricultural, but includes a small, limited amount of residential uses. The proposed multifamily use on this site is typical of where this type of use is developed. In general, a higher density residential use is compatible with the surrounding commercial and residential uses. This helps concentrate land uses, reduce sprawl, and promote a more efficient pattern of land uses and public utilities and services. The higher intensity of the proposed residential use will support the commercial uses, while the site plan proposes adequate buffers and transitions to ensure the uses operate in a cohesive manner. Based on my experience in evaluating the impacts of this type of development, the buffers on the site plan will ensure the uses on this site and surrounding properties will be appropriately protected, especially with the addition of a fence along the northern and eastern property boundaries. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
So before we wrap up, I'd like to briefly summarize the evidence that you just heard and how it applies to the approval criteria. With respect to factors A and B, Mr. Seamster testified that the proposed use and density are permitted in the site zoning district and are supported by the town's comprehensive plan. With respect to factor C, Mr. Howell testified that the proposed use is appropriately located adjacent to commercial and residential uses and is appropriately buffered. In addition, Mr. Ranke explained that the transportation improvements are appropriately designed to handle the additional traffic and will provide efficient access for emergency services. With respect to factors D and E, Mr. Howell testified that the proposed use is compatible with the surrounding uses and that it will not be detrimental to adjacent properties or be affected by surrounding uses because it provides sufficient buffering. With respect to factor F, Mr. Seamster testified that the site plan complies with UDO requirements, including density limitations, open space requirements, and any other applicable spatial requirements. With respect to factor G, Mr. Seamster and Mr. Howell explained that the site plan provides sufficient buffers and transitions to adjacent properties to adequately protect both the proposed use and the adjacent properties. Mr. Ranke testified that the transportation improvements are sufficiently designed to handle the amount of traffic anticipated from this development. Finally, with respect to factors H, J, and K, Mr. Seamster testified that the site plan conforms to all applicable UDO requirements, which has also been verified by planning staff throughout the review process. So to conclude, I would request that our application exhibits, presentation, the TIA, and the staff report be accepted into the record. And we are all available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition? Can you give us your name and address, please?
Amy Painter Benson, 1125 Marshburn Road, Wendell. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. My brother, Scott Painter, and I own the property that joins this property on the north side. It's a farm and a house. Thank you for letting me tell you what my concerns are. These 12 buildings, each 3 stories high, with a total of about 396 apartments, potentially will become over 1,000 people living next door. Some of these buildings may be just a few feet away. We are buying that little half-acre strip from Mr. Green. We're just waiting for the survey to be finished. But that little bitty strip was annexed last year along with the rest of Mr. Green's property, so it became CMX. So basically what I'm saying is 20 feet off our property line, we're going to have this development. Because it's 2 and 3 stories high, and people will think I'm paranoid, but if they're having a slow day, they'll just sit there and stare out the windows and see what we're doing on the other side of the 6-foot fence. Also, the noise with that many cars coming and going, people work shifts, there'll be a lot of noise all hours of the day and night. But the thing that I am most concerned about, and they have addressed the fact that they're going to do a 6-foot wooden fence down our property line and behind Wendell Landscaping, because we fear children especially will wander onto our property, and there's a lot of farm equipment there, and there is a large, deep pond used for irrigation. So you can understand my concern for making sure there's a fence that will keep these children from getting over there. The fence will be on the north side and the east side, down behind Wendell Landscaping, but there's also the area that comes up behind the food line, which I grew up knowing it as the art land. I believe it's 2781 Wendell Boulevard. I'm not totally sure, but I think it is. And if there's not something done in that area, they could still get to the pond in that area. And we also have farm equipment that's down there on that side. So that's my greatest concern. We don't want to be sued because somebody got hurt on our farm. And that's it. And thank you all very much.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. The applicant want to be heard again? Sorry, could you not hear me?
No, that's fine.
I didn't know if you wanted to be heard based on that.
Yes, thank you. So, yes, this is the main concern we did here at the community meeting, which is why we did propose that fence. And I'd like to clarify exactly where we are going to be providing that fence. It starts with these two properties right here, extends north, and then across the new property line, which is about 20 feet, or it's about a half-acre parcel that's subdivided out from the northern part of this property line. The fence will extend along this property line, and then down to the south, and then across the east to Marshburn Road. So we felt like that would adequately provide that the buffering and the security requested by the neighbors.
But not further down behind the food line. I just want to make sure I see what you're...
Correct. That is where it would stop.
Okay.
Currently as proposed, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And to also touch on the point of the 20 feet from the property line, so currently the code requires a 20-foot buffer with required landscaping. We are proposing that additional fence in there, and then the building setback from there is an additional 20 feet. So buildings at a minimum would be 40 feet from the property line.
Staff have any comments? Any more comments? Want to answer any questions from the board?
Yeah, we would just like the amendment to the zoning condition to include that fence with the appropriate pins be added for staff. So we're not interpreting what that statement is in the future, that we have it in the zoning condition. So. And we looked at a draft of it earlier today, so.
Has it been drafted, Brian?
We had a draft, I'm not sure if it was finalized. I'll let the applicant determine if that was final. Yeah, it's final on part of it. Yeah. Yes, we have it via email. There was a question on where the fence would go in the buffer. Traditionally, we want the trees facing the neighboring property. In this case, they want the fence and then the landscaping. So it's just a different location, but we got that earlier in writing.
You want that added as an additional condition? Is that what you said?
Or amended to a condition. Probably just a whole new condition would be beneficial, and I can read it from our emails earlier. So the language for it is a 6-foot wooden privacy fence shall be installed at the developer's expense in the perimeter buffer along the northern property boundary and the adjacent properties with the following PIN numbers: 1784358375, PIN number 1784358409, PIN number 1784559684, PIN number 1784650451, PIN number 1784551118, and PIN number 1784551064. The fence will be maintained by the property management company, is the last statement. I can just verify on IMAPs real quick.
I'm asking him to, he's sworn in, I'm asking him to verify that the pins that he covered the two parcels that he returning mentioned above the food line.
That was indicated just a moment ago. Okay. Thank you.
Just for what it's worth, to me, it sounded like it did include those two, but not the two to the north. So I'd appreciate you confirming all the ones that I think were just pointed out.
The numbers don't match up with the number of properties.
Yeah.
Number of pins.
You're missing the pin with the last four of 0072.
If we've got a hard copy of that, we can just put a line on it.
Sorry?
We can put a line on a drawing.
Okay.
And 8708, so the two directly north were left off of the email.
Can I clarify
Yeah.
that real quick? So we did not include the two pins to the north because there is a strip of land being subdivided from this parcel. So the proposed development is not going to border those two pins. It's going to border that one strip of land. So in the condition, we proposed all the conditions to the west, the east, and to the north of this pin down here. But we also clarified that the fence would be installed in the perimeter buffer along the site's northern property line, which would require the fence along the northern part of the project.
But that's why those two were not included in the list of pins.
Correct.
Okay.
But we will be required to provide the fence along our project's northern property line.
Let me show on the slide.
Yeah. So this is the site plan, and then so the red border is where the project boundary is going to be after that parcel is subdivided. The black dashed line is the current property line. So this project wouldn't technically border those two pins up to the north. But we're still in the process of subdividing that parcel out. So we didn't want to identify those two pins because our project won't border those two pins. If that makes sense.
There would be a continuous fence along the northern side of this property.
Right.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Anything else from staff? Any inquiries from the board?
I do have a question for staff.
Yeah.
Brian, can you talk about street connectivity index and specifically, sort of how that applies to this proposal and then specifically connectivity on the northern boundary of the property?
Yeah, so the connectivity is only for the public streets. Everything within the apartment community is considered parking lots. They're not streets, they're not public or private. And so the connectivity index looks at the intersection of Roseland Way, the intersection to the entrance, and then the entrance out on Marshburn Road. So that's for the connectivity index, those would be the intersections you would look at.
Gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the board?
Brian, can you speak to I'm trying to place things, but can you speak to the transition between the food line property and this property?
give me one second. I'm going to pull up a different, I think I'm going to pull up our PowerPoint. So if you can see in this image, there is a parcel, the Food Lion sits here in this larger parcel. There is a vacant parcel that runs along this western boundary, and then the Subway sits in this parcel. So there is, Food Lion does not own that vacant parcel, that's owned by another LLC. And the Subway Shopping Center is a different LLC, and then there's the Food Lion Shopping Center itself. So there is different property owners. I know the applicant, the Food Lion Shopping Center owner did contact us to get information, but did not attend any meetings and is aware of the project and let us know he was not opposed. But there is, for a full road connection, we would need to have the LLC that owns that vacant land be willing to have development or someone construct onto that property. But at this time, this applicant is building to the property line or as close as they can.
Just as a point of clarification about the vacant parcel that you referenced, is that the parcel that includes the ice machine? Then the Food Line parking lot, and is that approximately where the stub street is located in the plan?
Yeah, let me double check to make sure that one has the actual ice machine, I'm not sure.
MNP.
In IMAPS, it shows building value of 0 for that vacant parcel, which makes me think the ice machine potentially is on a different parcel, or it's not being taxed correctly, because it just says land value. It doesn't say any building value.
MNP, is that 227683?
What was that again?
227683.
Give me one second.
It's more of a vending machine than this goes. Ice machine's more of a vending machine where we can get.
Yeah, I don't know what you call that.
Could you repeat, what was?
Parcel ID 227683.
He's probably looking at the PIN numbers.
Yes,
just
yep,
above that
that one is the one, yeah.
Ice machine.
It is ice machine, okay. Yep, and the road lines up directly, kind of in the middle of that, near that ice machine.
Thank you.
And I think just as staff, we feel that the alignment is in the right location for that road.
Where the fence is located, is that all right with the homeowner that just spoke?
Yes, I believe she requested the fence at the neighborhood
It is in the right
meeting.
location, she verified.
Any other questions from the board? All right.
Brian, don't go far. Madam Mayor, I have a motion. Your time? Move we grant the special use permit request for the properties located at 2891 Wendell Boulevard and 969 Marshburn Road, with the condition of a 6-foot privacy fence to be constructed as a condition, at the PIN numbers that Mr. Coates is about to tell you.
Do we need to, yeah,
And to include the other conditions that are in the package,
the other conditions?
as agreed to by the applicant.
And to include the other conditions in the packet as agreed to by the applicant.
You said something about a drawing a minute ago. Do we need to have about the about the fence? Or is the way it's stated good enough?
You know, I think we're clear, but we're working on a drawing.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right. So we have a motion to approve, I don't have, multifamily residential use at 2891 Wendell Boulevard and 969 Marshburn Road with, the conditions agreed upon by the parties and with an additional condition of the fence
As shown on the attached map.
as shown on the attached map. I knew we were gonna get it. Is there any discussion on, is that your accurate statement of your motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor? Anyone opposed? No. All right. We'll move into our administrative items. Item 6A is a decision on an annexation and rezoning of approximately 41.59 acres from Wake County Residential 30 to Town of Wendell Residential 4 Conditional District to create a single-family residential neighborhood. Mr. Coates.
Yep, good evening, Mayor and Board. I'm going to get to those slides. Give me just one second. So item 6A tonight is a decision on annexation A2205 and the rezoning CD 21-14 of approximately 41.59 acres from Wake County Residential 30 to Town of Wendell Residential 4 Conditional District to create a single-family residential neighborhood. I have a couple updates I'm going to go over that were in your packet. The applicant has a few updates that have been made since the packet went out. So I'll go over, following the public hearing at the August 22nd meeting, the applicant has added a community gathering space that includes a playground, shade sails, benches, and picnic tables. Those are in the revised plans in your packet. They've also provided a road exhibit showing the improvements from their project and the turn lane required as part of the Lake Glad residential development, which was attachment H in your packet. I will go to those slides and show you those items have been added. You can see here what was considered just passive open space is now the amenity, which includes, and they have images in their PowerPoint of what that playground will look like, the shade sails. They also extended the trail over, a greenway trail over to that amenity area. Zoning conditions at the time of packet going out were not revised. The applicant does have a few revised ones currently. And then here is the image of the turn lanes that they're required to provide into the site, as well as the Lake Glad improvements that were part of the Lake Glad residential project. You can see a continuous center turn lane from their entrance down to Lake Glad Road, and then some queuing and transitional areas south of Lake Glad, and then north of their entrance as well. And the Josh from Ramey Kemp is here, who designed, Ramey Kemp put this exhibit together. And the applicant does have a PowerPoint of some revised zoning conditions as well.
Okay. Any questions for the town staff at this point? Okay.
Madam Mayor, fellow town commissioners, thank you for your time tonight. My name is Mark Puryear of Carolina Development Group. Just wanted to bring you guys up to speed on some changes that we've made since our last time here. In this particular PowerPoint presentation, you'll see some of the updates we've made. This is the entrance monument sign that Davidson Homes will be using. Much of this you've seen before, but just to highlight the existing conditions, the current zoning and planning jurisdiction. This slide shows the required requirements within the zoning of minimum site lot size of 6,000 square feet. Our lot sizes will range from 6,000 to 12,973 with an average square footage of 7,121. You see that our density fits within the requirement of 2 to 4 units per acre at 2.81. Our open space is 13.11 acres versus the required 4.6. And you see the open space components adding the neighborhood gathering space, of course the dog park, walking trails, and adjacent to Turnip Seed Nature Preserve. A couple of views here of the master plan, showing also the addition of the proposed community gathering space with the shade sails, picnic tables, playground equipment, and park benches. And over on your right, you'll see a couple pictures there of walking trail and dog park. This picture is similar to what you just looked at, but shows you a little bit more of what the open space will look like. You see the green along the different areas and borders there, again comprising of the 13.11 acres. The orange that you see there, that is the walking trails. As mentioned, it has been extended across the main entrance street to connect to the community gathering space. And here's a few slides of what we propose for this community gathering space. Again, you see the shade sails and picnic tables there, playground equipment, playground area. This is a little more of a zoom in showing you dog park and walking trails. Naturally, these are just prototypes of what we're proposing. This is a map just showing you kind of general location of Wendell Ridge and its proximity to Turnip Seed Nature Preserve. We have had, since our last meeting, continued dialogue with Wake County Parks and Recreation regarding the stubbing of our trails and aligning them with future walking trails in the Turnip Seed Nature Preserve. They are not at a point where they are ready to grant that or to really discuss that as yet, but they have said they are certainly open to having that conversation as we move forward and as they get further down the path with development near that end. As you saw in Brian's presentation, Ramey Kemp provided us a better visual of much what we presented last time. It's really showing in conjunction with the Lake Glad turn lanes, along with the turn lanes. The turn lanes for Wendell Ridge, they are highlighted in the orange, and the turn lanes for the Lake Glad intersection are in the blue or the purple. This next slide will give you a little bit better kind of visual of kind of how that will look and how those turn lanes will back up to each other but not interfere. There's, I think, about 100 feet of space there kind of between the southbound turn lanes and then the northbound turn lanes. Some additional conditions of approval that we are proposing tonight are dedicating a 10-foot access easement that would be provided for PIN 177-289-5873. That is the property on our western border, and this would allow for future pedestrian connectivity to Turnip Seed Nature Preserve and to Lake Myra County Park. The second one there is acquisition of 2 pins that you see that are 2132 Eagle Rock Road and 2208 Eagle Rock Road. Those would be set aside for future growth with annexation process to begin within 180 days of approval of Wendell Ridge. The third one there is removing lots 1 through 4 from the site plan. Those were quite close to the entrance to the community, So listen just to feedback from our last meeting. And then lastly, based on public feedback, we'd like to remove the emergency access road from the site plan. That's our conditions, additional conditions of approval. And just to show you some examples of homes that will be built there by Davidson Homes. We're proud to partner with them. They are a regional builder, privately owned. They've done neighborhoods in a number of Wake County, Johnston County communities. I think their closest current neighborhood is Glenmere over in Knightdale. So there's a elevation and an actual picture there. And then here is a second set of elevation and actual photographs. Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit, or just elaborate on what the, access easement, the 10-foot on that western boundary, is that, do I understand correctly that that would be a north-south easement, the entire western boundary?
Yeah, the entire western boundary is approximately 2,000 feet.
Okay.
That would be running north and south on what's our western border. That would really reach down all the way to Turnip Seed Nature Preserve and head north up to Lake Myra Road.
One additional, and I don't know if this is you or
Sure.
Brian, but on the street the road improvement cross sections, if you can go back to that slide real quick on Eagle Rock. Yeah. I know this is really talking more about the turn lanes and the intersections in and out of Eagle Rock Road, but are there additional road improvements? And what I'll tell you where I'm going with this. Are there things that, with the inclusion of these two new pins that you've, in that second new condition, are not gonna happen in front of those parcels that would if they were part of this proposal as a whole? Does that make sense?
Josh or Chris from Strong Rock may could answer that better than I, but I don't believe there would be any difference.
Because I don't think we have sidewalks on this road or
Right.
anything like that, but
Correct.
that sort of thing is
Yep.
what I'm thinking about. So, Brian may.
Yep.
So the current plans along the frontage of Eagle Rock, they would need to dedicate the additional right-of-way, construct sidewalks and ultimate build-out, street trees and ultimate build-out, and then any portion of a laneage that would be required. So a 4-lane divided roadway, we require half of a 3-lane undivided get constructed. So it's portion of a lane along the frontage. The other two parcels would need, at the time of any proposed development, or if the applicant wanted to, could dedicate that additional right-of-way. And then as development occurred, sidewalk, street trees would be required. But their plans currently show the additional right-of-way dedicated in the road improvements on their frontage that's currently included in the conditional district.
Okay. Well, then, Mark, that's sort of the question, additional question I appreciate your feedback on is whether what sort of ability y'all have from a additional dedication perspective on those two parcels, which I recognize, I think you said you didn't own yet, but I don't know how much you can commit to in that process, but can we go ahead and get at least the right-of-way, if not the full build-out of those street improvement, the off-street improvements, the expansion, the sidewalk, the street trees, for the full length, including the two new parcels, as opposed to just those two current road frontage pieces that are in the proposal?
Yeah, we would commit to the right-of-way,
The dedication.
Yeah, dedication, currently, with the build-out as far as sidewalks, once those two parcels would be developed.
When you spoke to the acquisition of the other two pins, explain to me a little bit about kind of what that means for this project, or what the goal of that is.
Yeah, let me back up here just to show you the slides. So those two parcels are right here. So that was done really for a couple of reasons. Some was from feedback from our last meeting about the entranceway coming in between, two current residences. We also felt like this was the right way to move forward with many comments about road safety on this road. It would certainly provide better visibility for people coming out of this community, turning onto Eagle Rock Road was one of the considerations as well. So improving both visibility from a safety aspect as well as aesthetically for the neighborhood. This will be a much cleaner drive into this neighborhood. And that's, again, why we seeking removal of lots 1 through 4. Those are the first 4 lots you see there on your left, or as we look at it, as on your right.
So is the plan when the acquisition of the properties occur for those buildings and those properties to be removed?
The plan is the property closest to Wendell, which would be on your left here, for that to be, for everything there to be removed and really cleaned up. There's a lot of old farm equipment and outbuildings and sheds and so forth that would all be removed, including the home. The property to the south or to the right, as you look at the map there, that would be maintained as it currently is. There's a home there, and then also a kind of a barn that houses a pet grooming business. So we're intending for those to remain moving forward.
Anything else from the board?
Yeah, one more, and sort of to piggyback off of John's question and maybe provide a little bit of insight to some of this, I think is probably associated with some conversations we've had about my concern about the entrance that you've already talked about, and also my wish that if something's going to happen here, that there be some sort of mixed-use component in a way that could do more than just another residential subdivision farther and farther out without amenities to help diversify what's there. And so, interested a little bit, Mark, in what you said there about the property to the south, and specifically access to that property, the property to the north, the space that's being created by the elimination of lots 1 through 4. In my ideal world, we would be eliminating access points from Eagle Rock Road through this process in a way that could consolidate those entrance and exit into this one entrance to the neighborhood to serve all of those parcels, from the back or something like that. Is there a way that that is already accounted for or could be accounted for through this site development plan?
I'm not sure if it can be accounted for in this particular site development plan as far as that access back to the main street coming in. That certainly is the long-term plan as we move forward with those 2 parcels. I mentioned that the one to the south that we we currently plan to leave it as is. That's not the long-term plan for that. As mentioned, we look at this as a potential, mixed use or commercial type of property. And any development that we would do with these 2 would access back to Street A or the main entrance street. Again, really with an eye on safety and connectivity that would work. We feel like would work for those parcels.
I'll just piggyback a little bit on that. Just the emergency access drive goes away, and we see the transportation improvements as well. So, Commissioner Eatman, I think we heard the concerns with safety, transportation, et cetera. So I think it is important to at least let it be known that, you know, entrance and exit onto Eagle Rock is not ideal there. So I just want to reiterate that.
I appreciate the updates. I appreciate that the parcels in the front were acquired. I think that I think you're right that it's going to provide a cleaner look in the front, and also provide long-term for a different type of development that I hope to see more of, where, as Commissioner Beam highlighted, you have some commercial opportunities in the front. I also appreciate the thoughtfulness of the trail connecting back to the nature preserve, and the added connectivity that y'all brought back, which I think will not only serve this community well, but serve our park system well as far as creating more points of access to those.
Are there
Madam
any
Mayor, I have a
questions or comments? Okay, yes, sir.
motion.
Yeah, I'll make one more comment if that's all right
Yeah.
first. I think on this neighborhood and the proposal, my biggest concern, and it's one that I've had mentioned on other developments and sort of keep in mind at all times, is connectivity and how it matches with the rest of our town, and how do we make sure that we have a town that feels like a town. And I think in my mind for a while, and it's not a secret, I've said this to a lot of folks, Eagle Rock Road has kind of been sort of a boundary that I've been hesitant to feel like crossing east of Eagle Rock and south of Lake Myra, sort of that southwestern section of our urban service area. We've heard folks talk a lot about park space that obviously the county owns. I think the last number I heard is something like 1,400 acres. Part of Turnip Seed that y'all can get to right now is just a little tiny blip of what they actually have, and a lot of opportunity for future development there, and I think that's a real asset to our town. And I think that if everything that we've talked about in these additional proposal or additional conditions and sort of the concept that we've discussed, and Mark, some of your answers to my questions tonight, I think that if all those things were the case and fell in line, we could have some real assurances of. I think that they could be a combination that could help me balance sort of that initial hesitation that I've got to annexing into this part of our urban service area. And again, that's really a concern from my perspective about where to annex. It's not really about density, it's not about the site design. I know those are important parts, and I know those are some of the things that folks have talked about, but it's really, to me, more of the importance of the location and the ability to connect what's there to what else we've got in town, what else we've got planned in town. I think from the conversations that we've had today, and we've had several, and I appreciate the willingness and ability to continue making improvements and getting this to a place where it's workable. I feel like right now there are a handful of it'll work, we'll have to do that sort of in phase 2 components of the combination I need to outweigh my concern with moving here, that are a little bit tentative for me to give a yes vote tonight on what we've got in front of us and the additional conditions. So I rambled a little bit. I think I've sort of told you where I'm at. I'm always happy to figure out how to get there, and I think there really is a path forward to get there on this one. I think we need to lock it in a little bit more than where we are right now, and so that's my perspective right now. I don't know exactly what the path forward on being able to get to that point is, whether that's, I know we've already paused for a few weeks, or if it's Obviously, I just speak for myself, not the rest of the board, so anyway.
Yeah, regarding the additional conditions of approval, is there anything specifically that you feel like needs to be tightened up?
Yeah, I think sort of go back to some of these questions that I've asked tonight, the street improvements along the entire frontage, and really, I appreciate the time clock, sort of in that second condition, new condition here on the screen right now, of tying this action with sort of that next step of going ahead and bringing in these 2 additional parcels. I think that's the right thing to do, for there to be some sort of conglomeration or combination of parcels, because the original parcel we talked about a few weeks ago just didn't make sense to me on its own. I just think that getting all of those to one vote is, we've had some similar proposals in the past. I think we've approved one recently, I think I was on the board then, on Wendell Falls Parkway, that was partially residential, partially commercial, sort of with multi-phase and different levels of detail in the 2, but kind of gave us that full package in a way that, made it, in my perspective anyway, work what we were trying to do. And I think that here, it's tying a little bit closer than I think we've been able to do in sort of some of these final additions that I'm glad we've done them, and I'll take some of the blame for the timing on where we're at and sort of the process of getting these added, but I'd really like to see full improvement of Eagle Rock Road along the full length of what I think of as they're 3 parcels, as well as that connectivity to those additional street front parcels that I've talked about, with some helping reduce the entrance and exits off of Eagle Rock Road from the safety component. Just thinking more about how all of these pieces fit together and work as a combination, as a combined proposal, I think is about a half of a step probably beyond where we're at right now. And I don't think it's unattainable, but I think the 2 issues are still separated a little bit more than I'm comfortable with them being separated, and would like to kind of bring the package together a little bit tighter to get to a point that I'm ready to give a thumbs up.
If I may clarify.
Sure.
Just in case staff's asked to talk to the developer, if you took the second bullet there, and if you put an if statement on the end of it that said, if these new properties are annexed, then the developer shall be subject to the complete improvements on the road frontage, and to provide access off the entry road and eliminate the driveway access on Eagle Rock Road. Am I hearing what?
Yeah.
Okay. If you added that statement to the second bullet, is that something that you would be willing to do?
Yes, absolutely. Maybe I didn't answer your question quite correctly the first time, but I said we were comfortable with.
Mark's good at translating me sometimes.
Yeah. We are comfortable with that, and we would certainly agree to that enhancement of that amendment, a condition.
Okay. I'll defer to y'all a little bit on process-wise of adding language.
First time I'm hearing it, so if that language addresses the concern in your head, and the applicant's willing to address the concerns that you mentioned in that manner, that would achieve the 2 things that I heard from you tonight, if that.
I think it does, and there may be one additional thing, and I want to make sure I understand how the second new condition here would work. Would all of it be contingent on what's contained in that second condition? So in other words, when we're saying if, what if we don't annex these other 2 parcels on that timeline? Is the rest of this kind of in flux until that happens, or?
Well, if they're not in the town, and then it's limited on what we could do. I mean, they could build a stub out to the property, but we couldn't make, if that property didn't convey, somebody else that's not subject to the rezoning. Okay, stepping out there and the attorney can, I don't disagree with that. Yeah, so that puts the condition that once it's part of the town, then the town's development criteria that the rest of this development would be subject. This is a condition that they have to start that process within 6 months, so that it gives a time certain. I mean, there are other ways you could, boards can put, the improvements have to happen within a certain phase or along some line of when the development's occurring, so that you have a time certain of, like, in conjunction with. That would encourage the proactive movement on an annexation. But that's, again, if that addresses your concern.
I think it partially answers my question. I think I'm asking beyond the additional language that you've mentioned being added to that provision of the street the Eagle Rock Road side improvements and the access improvements on the rear side of those lots. Is the rest of the residential portion contingent on what's in item 2 happening? Or can it be? Does that seem like a different question, or does that seem like I'm asking the same question?
I think you lost me.
Okay.
Would item 2 and the extra language that we're adding, is it a condition on the whole development? I believe the answer is...
As stated, what I heard was it was a condition on the annexation of these 2 parcels.
Right.
Okay.
So in addition to adding the language, I guess, that we've talked about a little bit here, would you also, I guess my other question is, would you be willing to make that a condition of the development as opposed to the improvements being a condition of the annexation? And in addition to, I shouldn't say as opposed to.
I think what I'm hearing is this a condition just like any other, when we add that language to the end?
Is this an additional one?
No.
Yeah.
And maybe to say it in a different way is, I mean, I want all 3 of these parcels to be part of this plan. And so without those second 2 additional parcels that made some good progress toward incorporating through this language, without that, I don't like the plan. And so can the plan be conditioned on the addition of the 2 parcels as opposed to, in addition to, if those 2 parcels are added, we talk about the street improvements and those sort of things being.
Can I just say, in my mind, the acquisition of the 2 parcels is a condition of the approval. So if we are adding language onto the backside of that, I'm of the thought that that is also a condition of the approval.
My recommendation to make sure that the ordinance reflects the vote would be that you table this item until these conditions can be drafted, incorporated into the draft ordinance, and then presented to you. I hate to be the source of further delay, but I'm afraid there's too much variation and too much wording in these conditions, and I'm just not sure we're going to get it exactly like we want it unless we take the time to draft it and put it in the draft ordinance.
There's too much room for a misinterpretation.
Yes, ma'am.
Confusing, yeah.
I would add on to that, though, and I'm here to be a straight shooter with anybody. I don't want to waste your time or anybody else's. I want to make sure that what I'm asking for feels kind of clear. And totally understand if that's not a direction that makes sense. I don't ever want to delay things for the sake of delaying them. I want to delay them to get them right. We talk about that a lot. But I also want to be clear about sort of where my parameters are. If you have any questions, I guess is what I'm saying, feel free to ask.
Yeah, as mentioned, by Mr. Collins, we're happy to add that additional clarification, to item number 2, that would stipulate how the traffic would move with that future development. We're happy to even, to change the annexation process time period to move that forward. We'd be comfortable with 90 days. So I just didn't listen, to the attorney. Some of it's procedural as far as how we handle it. These are, additional conditions of approval, and we're happy to enhance them as we've mentioned here, and work with the town to have something that we're proud of, you're proud of, that we're happy to move forward with. This is something that's came together fairly recently, as far as those parcels go, but we do have those under contract. We do plan on close on them within the next 45 days. So like I say, we're happy to even expedite this annexation process a bit, and agree to the additional, languages, wording that you've.
Just a thought, but if we were to add at the end of that, that all roadway improvements for those listed pins would be completed, and that the roadway access for the 2 new pins would be eliminated onto Eagle Rock Road after being acquired. I would think that would be another way of getting at the same thing. If you're eliminating the access off the front of it, and ensuring the roadway piece in the front of it, then, I mean, the other idea is, that any future redevelopment of those parcels would have an exit to the rear. I can understand why it might be to the side or something else, but my thought was if we remove them from Wendell, or just say that those parcels shall not have access to Eagle Rock Road. If we eliminate the front, then that kind of forces the other.
We'd be agreeable with that. Yes.
Do we think that we can get the language?
Let me just speak for just a second here, and just so I'm with you guys, because Dean, you lose me sometimes, man. So is your goal with acquiring these 2 properties together, is your goal to reduce the connectivity off Eagle Road and that's it? And I just want to make sure I'm understanding what the point is of having, to me, whether we acquire all 3 lots in one or we have 3 individual lots, to me, that doesn't make a huge difference in my likeness of this project. And so I want to make sure that we're being good uses of his time too. So if I agree with the first part of your statement about the left side or the western side of Eagle Rock Road was kind of was a border for me. Is it drifts over to Lake Myers? It drifts into all these parks. As far as being very selective with what we're approving there. So while the connectivity to these adjacent lots and acquiring the lots may be an interest for you guys, and maybe I'm just being dull, but I want to make sure I understand what the appeal of, or why acquiring those lots makes this now a project that seems beneficial. We're not changing anything with the site plans or design, aside from just saying, hey, now we can connect just to these 2 adjacent lots. to me, and this is not anything with a site plan on the project at all, it's just the general geographic location of this lot. It is, I agree with what some citizens have said as far as just the maneuverability through this area is tight and is quick. And we've added homes of Lake Loud Road, and we're down the road from a very just congested intersection. And so, one of the problems in ours always to solve when it comes to roads and to intersections, or I should say it's not our problem to solve, it's not our ability to solve those problems. It can certainly be our ability to not make them worse. So, if this is, I just want to be transparent with my thoughts on it too. So so that we're not, wasting anybody's time.
Would you let it take more time to see if we can get these conditions vetted out or written in a different way, or?
If your preference is for us to work on that, I would suggest maybe you move on with the agenda, suspend this item for a few minutes, come back to it, we'll work on the conditions.
We're fine with that.
Let's move on and see what you guys come up with.
Thank you. We'll talk with you in a few minutes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 6B, Harvest Festival Road Closure and Co-Sponsorship Policy Request for Saturday, October 1st.
Good evening. It is time to bring forward the Harvest Festival item once again. This item is a request to temporarily approve road closures and a co-sponsorship policy. Harvest Festival is scheduled for October 1st, 2022 this year, hosted again by the Chamber of Commerce. This is the 94th time of the event. The event will run from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. Setup times are included as the closure request. The event is set up the same as last year in terms of what roads are proposed to close. They're listed below. Streets impacted by the parade will be reopened following the parade. Not all sections of streets will need to be closed for the entire event. Police Department and Public Works, once again, will reopen areas as they become available, as they have in the past. Town staff expenses required to manage the normal components of a downtown event are donated, as we've done in the past. Town manager has authorized overtime pay or compensatory leave for police and public works personnel consistent with the personnel policy at the request of the departments, so the support levels from town staff will be the same as they have been in the past. The co-sponsorship policy, which was included in the packet, formalizes that agreement between the town and the chamber to provide such services. There will be a beer tent again this year, as there was in 2019. So this slide outlines the ordinance that the board updated previously, authorizing the town manager to exempt the prohibition of alcohol on Camp and Row and the town square. The beer tent will be located in the town square, so the town manager does have authorization to approve that. Just wanted to include it in the packet for the board's awareness. Happy to answer any questions. The new executive director of the Chamber of Commerce is here as well this evening, and members of the board if there are any specific event questions that the board would like to ask.
Are there any questions from the board? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move we approve. Back to the slide. Temporary road closures and the co-sponsorship for the Harvest Festival Raid and special event.
All right, we have a motion to approve the requested temporary road closures and co-sponsorship policy for the Harvest Festival Parade and special event. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, right, thank y'all. Item 6C is the Wake County Subrecipient Award of the American Rescue Plan Act Fund Policies. We'll hear from our Finance Director again.
Thank you. Good evening. So on March 9th, 2022, the Wake County Board of Commissioners approved a subrecipient award to the town of Wendell to appropriate a portion of their ARPA funds for the rehabilitation of the Carver School at Pleasant Grove. Since the time of that award, town staff has been working with Triangle J Council of Government, who was contracted by Wake County to administer these subrecipient awards that they extended, and to work through some of the preliminary logistics, which includes the scope of our project, ARPA compliance, and the adoption of policies. While the town has received these subrecipient funds to expend for the designated project, Wake County is still ultimately responsible for ensuring that these funds are used appropriately per uniform guidance, federal uniform guidance, and ARPA-specific regulations. As such, the county is requiring all of its subrecipients to adopt the following policies, which it must follow to maintain grant performance. As you see before you, those policies are allowable cost policy, conflict of interest, contract control procedures, non-discrimination policy, procurement policy, property management policy, records management policy, and records retention policy. These Wake County specific policies will remain in place through the applicable ARPA performance and auditing time periods. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Are these policies that are just, we're adopting the full policy and content that the county recommends, or do we develop our own? And if the latter, are they reviewed by the attorney?
So these are specifically drafted by Wake County and TJ Cog. A following item tonight will be for the town's internal policies that are of the same nature. If there were to be a difference in the policies, we would take the more stringent of those, more restrictive, to make sure that we are meeting full compliance for whichever party we're representing.
Any other questions?
Have they been reviewed by the attorney?
I'm sorry, what was that answer over there? Yes, they have.
They're pretty standard from jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
Okay.
Everybody wants them the same.
All right, we have a motion.
Madam Mayor, move adoption of the policies as presented.
All right, we have a motion to adopt the policies as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? Favor?
Aye.
All right, we're going to take a 12-minute recess until 9:20. People are making faces at me. So we're in recess. We're going to move into item 6D, the town financial policy for procurement, internal controls, and federal awards management. Johnson.
Thank you again. On Monday, February 28th, 2022, the Board of Commissioners approved a proposal for professional services with Withers Ravenel to assist the town in drafting policies for general procurement and purchasing, as well as for federal award compliance. The policies drafted for federal awards were created to assist in complying with the directly appropriated ARPA funds that the town received, but these policies can be used for other fund receipts that are subject to federal guidance with little to no amendments. As I mentioned in the previous item, in cases of spending subrecipient award funds where the source provider requires the adoption of similar policies, the more stringent of the policies will be followed. These policies will be added to the already existing financial goals and policies that the board previously adopted and will be reviewed annually as part of the budget document process and updated as needed. I apologize for not including the verbiage for which policies were provided in your packet, but to read those out loud, those are a procurement policy, internal controls policy, a uniform guidance procurement policy, federal awards allowable cost policy, federal awards non-discrimination policy, federal awards conflict of interest policy, federal awards records retention, federal awards program income policy, and federal awards property management policy. So as you can see, those are all very similar to the policies that you just adopted on behalf of Wake County. These would be the town's policies for direct appropriations.
If I may add just briefly, these policies reflect a good challenge to have, and that is that we're receiving substantive federal and state awards that require specific requirements be in place that the town hasn't had to worry about in the past. These are, if we received more or direct community development block grant funding for community improvements, we would already have these in place. Typically, when you're subrecipients, you do a little less, but if you're the main provider, you have a lot more. We're getting a lot of direct federal funds in the coming year and need to have these in place to be able to receive and make sure that we are appropriating and move forward in those processes in the correct manner. We're also starting, like on the Pleasant Grove project, we're starting the design process in the coming months in advance of expending federal funds on that project. And we want to make sure that what we're doing in the design process is consistent with it as well. So we need these now to be able to initiate the request for qualifications process in the coming month for Pleasant Grove. Thank you.
Any questions from the board? Motion?
No, Mayor, I move the adoption of the policies as presented.
All right, we have a motion to adopt the policies as presented. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 6E is the introduction and appointment of Mary E. Tu to the position of town clerk.
Welcome, Mary. Mary Beth. Mary Beth Tu started in the position of town clerk on Friday. This is a position that is a direct appointment of the Board of Commissioners. And so the main item tonight is to formally request an appointment of Mary Beth as your town clerk. Under the town ordinance, the town clerk then works at the direction of the town manager on your behalf, but it's still your appointment. I'd like to recognize Mayor Gray for helping Debbie Kenny, the HR administrator, and I through the selection process. It was a very competitive process, and We by far got the best candidate out of that process. We would be doing a formal public announcement pending your action tonight. Mary Beth joins us after 4 years as deputy clerk for the city of Winston-Salem. She's currently enrolled in the Clerk Certification Institute at UNC School of Government and is scheduled to complete the 4-week training this October. Upon completing the training, she'll be eligible to be a certified municipal clerk, which is one of those nice-to-haves that we had in the job description. She's currently an active member of the International Institute of Municipal Clerks and North Carolina Association of Municipal Clerks. The position is a homecoming of sorts for Mary Beth, in that her family is from just east of Garner in Johnston County, and so she grew up in our area. She went to NC State, which is good to some and otherwise to others, but I know there's a lot of red up on the dais there. She was in Parks and Rec, so much like Stephanie and myself, started in Parks and Rec and then shifted to more of a administrative nature in her career. Highly technical, highly organized skill sets demonstrated in the application and skills testing process. And so at that, I'd like to offer the mic to Mary too to say hello. Mary Beth.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm really excited to be here and to get to work with you all in the future.
We're happy to have you. Welcome.
Thank you.
So do we need a motion to make an appointment of Mary Beth as our town clerk?
Madam Mayor, I move we appoint Mary to the position of town clerk.
All right. We have a motion to appoint Mary Tu as the town clerk. Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right. All right, let's move back to item 6A.
In an effort to try to address the concerns, the applicant has clarified a couple of the conditions. So just to summarize, there were 14 conditions in the initial proposal or application. There are 4 new conditions, one of which is removal of emergency access, so that would take out condition number 14 in the initial draft. The other ones are the 10-foot access easement. In fact, could we put those 4 back up there, Brian? So those 4 new conditions would be added to the ordinance with the following modification of the second one. The acquisition of those 2 parcels and submission of an annexation petition for those 2 parcels within 90 days. And upon the opening of the main entrance road for Wendell Ridge, access to those parcels would no longer be permitted via Eagle Rock Road. All road improvements that have been presented to the board would be bonded or completed prior to issuance of any building permits for Wendell Ridge. Yes, that would include all road improvements, including the stretch in front of the 2 parcels to be annexed or to be petitioned for annexation. So if the applicant could confirm that that's been stated correctly and your consent to those terms?
Yes, sir. We do consent to those terms.
I think that's all we can do. I hope that gets you where you wanted to be.
What was the original purpose for those 2 parcels to the yellow boxes that we saw on the plan? What was originally gonna be there, if anything? Or just tell me about those places.
Originally, they were gonna be left as is, based on some feedback from the last meeting, with the look and safety of the entrance into Wendell Ridge. It was consideration, and we pursued these two parcels to purchase them, and the one to the north to immediately upon closing of that property to remove any buildings, homes, outbuildings, barns, old farm equipment. It's a bit of an eyesore. So some of it was a street feel aspect, as well as additional visibility. And then, as we looked at that a little bit further, was to be able to close two access points onto Eagle Rock Road, feed them into our entrance, improving safety along there. So it really was a multi-pronged kind of approach of how to best do this project, our residential community, as well as those two parcels kind of on the front. So it's going to be much better from a marketability standpoint for homeowners, from street curb, as well as, like I was mentioned, as from safety, because as I say, we've agreed to, upon opening of our road, to close these other two access points, and one of those does have a business at it, and those would come back into our main street, our main entrance. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just really wrestling with going from leaving them as is to now all of a sudden there's a commercial component to the development that wasn't discussed in the public hearing. I'm struggling with that. I don't think that's not okay to me. I think, we didn't hear any kind of, people weren't given an opportunity to talk about the commercial component there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always an advocate of letting people be heard, and I feel like people throw around a lot of words and things up here sometimes, and it's not transparent. It's not any of those things that get thrown around. I'm not going to say I have an opinion about it one way or the other,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't part of the original public hearing, and that bothers me.
Right, and naturally, any development that we would do or changes to those properties is something that we would naturally have to work with, and want to work with, the town of Wendell, and with planning, to ensure it's something that fits within, the guidelines and desires
Yeah,
for what's going to be there.
Yes, sir, I understand that.
Yeah.
But by that time, I'm trying to think of what's the right cliche. It's kind of a done deal by that point.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, from my perspective, I think it should have been part of the public hearing. That's just my perspective. Are there any comments from anyone else on the board?
If these properties are obtained, and just for my clarification, I believe this kind of goes off what you're saying, Mayor Gray, what will the zoning of these be, R4 conditional district?
They're going to have apply and get zoning for those parcels when they get annexed.
Okay, so as of right now, they'll just, what you guys are doing, they'll still stay to R30, I guess, and then until
we annex it, then we have to apply zoning.
And that will be another public hearing and everything when those come into play.
Yep.
And if I might, I'll take a little bit of blame. The commercial comment, the mixed-use comment, that's really just what I would like to see there. I'm one member of this board. There's not anything that, from what I understand, so anybody feel free to correct me, from what we're doing tonight that would permit that to happen, require that to happen. I think, just to play off of that next comment, the only thing that's required is that the applicant move forward with annexation of these two additional parcels. As part of that annexation, which this board would have to vote on, a zoning would also have to happen. So I'll say that was a question, but those two decisions would still have to be made
through a public hearing like any other annexation and rezoning.
That's correct, and the decision is not, predetermined. You could deny the annexation.
And I've told y'all what I think, but that, again, that's
The condition
person.
stated is just that the petition has to be submitted for annexation. Still be at board's discretion as to how to act on it.
Yeah, we currently have no plans for those parcels other than kind of what we've mentioned from the standpoint of clearing 2132 to provide, the different visibility, clean up from an aesthetic as well as a visibility aspect even for traffic. So there's, but we have agreed, as Mr. Cawley read, to go ahead and proceed with those street improvements that Commissioner Eatman had requested. So,
Thank you for the clarification. I just think it would get into a dangerous place
Sure.
when we start off talking about residential and then you start dropping little breadcrumbs about other things, and then that could influence the decision that's made, and by the time another public hearing would come about, it's kind of already a done deal, and I wouldn't want that to take place, and I wouldn't want these folks to feel like they had not had an opportunity to speak about it, so they would have enough opportunity.
Understood. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments from the board?
Madam Mayor, I move the approval of the annexation and rezoning conditional district 2114, approximately 4159 acres, Wendell County Residential R30 to the town of Wendell Residential R4 conditional district to create a single-family residential neighborhood, to adopt the attached ordinance and include the proposed conditions as well as the conditions added this evening.
I'm going to paraphrase. So we have a motion on the proposed annexation to approve it and approve the rezoning request, adopt the ordinance with the conditions in addition to ones that were added tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, let's signify with our hands raised on this one. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, thank y'all. We'll move into our other business, update by board committees, Eastern Wake Senior Center, Commissioner Deloach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The board met, they did a hybrid meeting again, virtual and in person. The discussion this time was some really points of brainstorming to discuss what the center is doing right, what the center can do better, and then just a brief presentation on a handful of things that, I guess, program-wise, that they're looking forward to. Obviously, the Harvest Festival will be one of those things. Senior Center will have a booth at the Harvest Festival, and the infamous Senior Strutters will be there as well. So that was, and just the excitement when they discuss it is really a fun thing. So I personally have recently done Meals on Wheels, and I can tell you the buzz is in the building. I don't participate in the activities, but just, from being there for that, I can certainly say that they're enjoying being opened back up. I will mention, too, there was, I feel confident they're okay in me saying this, but we've had an anonymous offer for donation to match any individual or small business in Wendell for a $5,000 donation to the Senior Center. Now, this cannot be a collective group of people, so I can't go out there and raise $5,000 and expect that person to match it. But this would be for any individual, small business locally. So we're excluding a lot of the big corporate donors. So that is the desire of the match potential. So if you know of anyone, or if you personally would be interested in discussing that further, they are obviously interested in that and would love that match for programming. So I will throw that out there so you can contact me direct. But other than that, I'll make sure that we change the date. We're going to go with the first Thursday rather than the second Thursday moving forward. But other than that, all is well in Wake Senior Center.
Thank you. Wendell Volunteer Fire Department, Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Volunteer Fire Department Board met, and we are excited to announce the last Tuesday, Wendell Battalion 11 became a position in the Wendell Fire Department for the first time. So you'll see an additional battalion chief vehicle, battalion chief covering 24 hours a day. That position, obviously, those hires were from within, so there were several promotions throughout the department, as well as new positions being added through the Wake County Fire Training Academy that was done with some federal money. But we will welcome 3 additional firefighters coming soon. In addition to that, we expect our ISO rating scores from the state to come back likely prior to our next meeting, and look forward to retaining our good ISO rating, and are looking forward to the long-term benefits of the investments the fire department's making.
Thank you. Let's move right into our commissioners' comments and stay with Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For the record, I'm wearing Carolina blue pants tonight. That's an acknowledgement of Carolina's victory against Appalachian State 2 weeks ago, and what I think is the highest scoring football game in at least anyone I've ever been to. So I've honored my portion of said wager. And to that point, I'd like to highlight that Saturday, Appalachian State beat number 6, Texas A&M, a feat that you would have to go back to 1967 to find for NC State, and that North Carolina is actually still looking for the last time their football team beat a ranked team. So just wanted to highlight that for what it's worth. I know we have several App State alumni members in the Wendell area who would certainly be encouraged by that. I want to congratulate town staff and a variety of artisans on the Wendell Market happened last week, and it was an awesome event. It's very cool to see East Camping Road used in a way that it was designed. It's awesome to see vendors come, be able to set up, be able to, in some ways, for some of them, launch businesses, for some ways, expand their businesses, and in other ways, connect with a market of people or a group, a population that is interested in the arts locally. It is a must-go-to event for my family now. Speaking of must-go-to events, Meet on Main's Friday night. I have not looked at the weather, but
it's good.
It's good. The mayor has handled the weather for us, so come on out. It's going to be a great night. Really awesome event downtown. I want to do something I do from time to time and step on a soapbox really quickly, and I promise that I'm going to step on and step off really quickly. The way that we talk to each other matters. The way that we communicate with each other matters. The words that you choose to use, whether they are on social media, whether they are in a public forum, or whether they're just in front of your kids, matter. I have a constant reminder in a 5-year-old that hears everything I say, and then will repeat it later on. That the way that I conduct myself and the words that we choose to use matter. The way that we treat others matters. Last week, Wendell experienced a hard thing, a thing that no town, but certainly no family and no parent should ever have to experience. I would say that words matter. And the other thing that I would say is that the way that we go about dealing with those types of situations shows an incredible amount about who we are as people. It is it's the goal of every member of this board and every member of every community that I can imagine that our kids go to school in the morning safe and they come home in the afternoon safe. And for our community last week, that wasn't the case. I've sat on this board through other community events, other deaths, other juvenile deaths, I don't know. If there's a perception that there's a perception sometimes that the words we use don't matter, I would point to last week in saying that the way we treat each other matters, if for no other reason than the next generation is watching us. I appreciate town staff, and I appreciate the way that our community showed love to the Pendergrass family. And I would just remind us all once again that the way that we go about our lives every day in Wendell, whether that's at the grocery store, at a school, at one of the town events, or here, matters. It matters to the outcome, and sometimes it matters to outcomes that you'll never know about. And with that, Madam Mayor, I'll kindly step off my soapbox.
Commissioner Lutz?
Yes, ma'am. A reminder, like Commissioner Joyner said, Meadle Main is this Friday. The weather looks great, so it should be a great night to be out there. Historical Society had the reverse rifle last Friday night. Seemed to be a great turnout for that too, so thanks also who supported that. And then again, last week, not to stay on the kind of the down, the kind of more somber subjects, but last week we lost Larry Vaughn, who was a longtime Wendell citizen, and he was someone who served the town. He was on the planning board and had a lot to do with the streetscapes and the trees we have in this town too. And so I knew Larry through Rotary Club, and just he was always somebody who was active and involved. And I think the word we was using his service was present. He was always there. He was always helping out. So. To his family and their kids, and just our thoughts are with him this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Eatman?
I don't have any additional comments tonight, thank you, Mayor.
Commissioner Tornaski?
No comments tonight. Thank you.
Commissioner Deloach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just say real quick, Commissioner Joyner, Commissioner Lutz mentioned it, and you know we've had some struggles recently in our community, and I do want to thank town staff for stepping up and helping out, and you know doing the right thing is always easy. So just you know be kind, do good, help others. I mean, I say it all the time. You know, we all care about our town and our community, so just do what you can to reach out. And it's hard to transition into it, but I'm a pirate, and tonight I'm wearing red. And I will say that we lost a tough one against the Wolfpack, but I was good for my word. I am wearing red tonight. I was able to see one Wolfpack alumnus while I was there. Full disclosure, my sister's an NC State grad, so she was with me as well. My three nephews graduated or attend East Carolina University, so there's that. But anyway, great game, and we won the following week, so here's my red. Don't get used to it. Go Pirates. Baseball season is coming around the corner.
Quick reminder, I think you've heard it already, Meet on Main is trying again, fingers crossed, 6 to 9:30 downtown. The band's the Stone Age Romeos, they're always great, it'll be a great time. Please come out and join us. I really want to thank the Meet on Main group. They've hung in there, waterlogged time after time after time, and their enthusiasm has not been dampered. So I just, the weather's supposed to be nice. I've looked at my weather app about 3 times today, so I think it's going to be great. I also wanted to thank the staff for the Wendell Market. It ran without a hitch. It always does. That doesn't just happen. It's due to great planning and organization by our town staff, and I appreciate that effort by them. They always make us look good by their hard work and their efforts. The last thing I want to comment, we had a terrible tragedy in Wendell last week at one of our schools. That morning, I received one of the worst phone call, the worst phone call I've received during the time that I've been mayor, about 10 o'clock that morning. I later went out to the school once the children were mostly dismissed, and I just cannot describe the environment and what I saw and the heartbreak, and by the few students that were still there and the staff, they are just devastated. They're just not words to describe it, and my heart is broken as well. I've been contacted by numerous individuals, groups, PTAs from schools in other counties, churches, counseling services, and more. People want to help. They don't know what to do. I gave them a little bit of guidance, in situations like this, what all you can do is really soften the rough edge of a bad time, and they're more than willing to do that, and I think a lot of things have happened at the school this week in response to that, and I certainly appreciate that, and they offer the counseling services as well from the folks here in Wendell. I really appreciate those efforts, and I appreciate those people treating those who are hurting so badly with such love and kindness, and I thank them for their caring, and will continue to do that. I think as a society, we've kind of lowered the bar for what is acceptable behavior for adults, and when adults do that, children do that, because as Commissioner Joyner said, and he's correct, our children are watching, and they are learning by our example, and I'm afraid our example isn't good right now, at least not consistently. I think we need some self-reflection, how we treat each other. It's an opportunity for people to stop and think of how they've treated other folks. And stop and think, is this really what we want? We shouldn't be willing to do and say anything just to get what we want sometimes. And I think I see that happening. Anyhow, for those of you who are of the mind, I'm sure that the folks in the family of this young man could use your prayers, and the school could use them, your support. Maybe go out when they have a football game this year and work in the concession stand, and let's be a positive impact at Wendell Middle School this year. They're kind of trapped over there, and they get left out of things a lot of times, and have difficult conversations with your children. Ask them how they're feeling, ask them how they're treating others, ask them what their friends are thinking. It's a hard thing, and it's not going to go away, and these folks' lives have been forever changed. And very sad. So, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Madam Mayor, one quick comment that
Yeah.
I omitted and I think we would all share. I wanted to publicly thank School Board Member Heather Scott, who I think called the mayor that morning and then had the difficult task of going to a board meeting that night and listening to a presentation about mental health.
She did.
She is not running for reelection and has served this community well and has been a strong voice for Eastern Wake County and a strong voice for the kids in Eastern Wake County, and I just wanted to thank her for her time.
I agree. She actually commented in that meeting that she knew how the town of Wendell was going to surround that young man's family with love and support. She did. So,
With that, I'm moved to adjourn.
okay, we're adjourned.